Okay, kids, we're gonna try this. I say again, it's the first time for you. It's the second time for me. I had a very long day on Friday when I saw the Iron Claw, and I tried to do this. I was very tired, and it just came out a mess. So I'm gonna see if I can do this again. Keep it short. I'm gonna go ahead and give a review on the Iron Claw. There's already umpteen reviews on YouTube for the Iron Claw, but I just didn't see how I could not do one. Since I've been talking about this movie for over a year, I should at least give a few thoughts on the final product. But let me say up front, I did like the movie. I do recommend seeing it. I understand the problems that some people have with it, but you should still see it. It's still a good movie. I thought all of the main cast did a great job, and I thought that's what I would concentrate on to start. Is since we've talked so much about the casting, the main cast was excellent. This might very well be Zac Efron's best performance in a movie. Jeremy Allen White, which, if you go back and watch that first Iron Claw video I did, I was very critical of the choice of Jeremy Allen White. And let me say this real quick. I watched an interview with him. He was talking about when he got the part, or he was asked to do the part. He was not a wrestling fan, was not familiar with the Von Erichs. And he said, okay, so he got on Google and Googled Kerry Von Erich and looked at it, and even he was like, you gotta be kidding me. So even he didn't think, he wasn't sure that he matched up well with Kerry Von Erich, but you gotta give credit where credit's due. The guy worked his butt off. He looked really good. Nobody was gonna look like Kerry from, mid 80s to early 90s. That's what everybody thinks of when they think of Kerry Von Erich. But I thought he matched up pretty well with a late 70s, early 80s, a very young Kerry, late teens, 18, 19, 20-year-old Kerry. And his performance was good. I liked the way he picked up on a lot of the little things that Kerry would do. So I thought he did a great job. Stanley Simons as Mike Von Erich. I thought he captured Mike's playfulness really well. McCallany. I've been saying his name wrong this whole time, apparently. I've been saying McElhaney. It's Holt McCallany playing Fritz Von Erich. If there's one criticism there, I guess it's maybe he's a little more animated than Fritz really was. That's maybe a little nitpicky thing. But he was very good, and getting some early Oscar buzz from what I've heard too, so that would be pretty cool. And then Maura Tierney is Doris Von Erich. I thought she really captured how the weight on the shoulders of Doris and how she basically had no control over anything, if that makes any sense. But another fine performance. Lily James. That's one thing we don't really know that much about Pam. Kevin's wife Pam has stayed a very private person over the years. We don't really know that much about her, but I thought Lily James did a great job as well. But all this talk about height and what they look like. Really, I wasn't distracted at all by any of that. How, if they were the right height or any of that. I think the only time the height or anything, how anybody looked physically became an issue for me was actually Stanley Simons. Stanley is actually a pretty tall fella, and he's playing Mike Von Erich, and he's almost as tall as Harris Dickinson, who played David Von Erich, and that was a little distracting in a couple of parts of the movie because Stanley Simons was way too tall. He's standing there towering over both Kevin and Kerry as well. So that was a little distracting. But for the most part, it really you get so much into the story. It wasn't that big of a deal to me. But I think out of all the actors, the main actors, I'll say the same thing I said after I saw the trailer. Harris Dickinson really stood out. He looked a lot like David. He sounded like David. Out of all of them, I think he, maybe more than anybody, became the character, which is kind of odd considering I don't think he was much of a wrestling fan either. So to me, Harris Dickinson sits on top of the list. but they all did well. I thought it was fine acting jobs by all of them. Once you got out of the main characters, the main actors, uh, everybody else really kind of had a small part. Bruiser Brody and Gino Hernandez, and if they were actors or wrestlers playing the parts, all of them really didn't have a very big part in the movie. A couple of in-ring scenes with the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, which the Freebirds look great. That was Brady Pierce, Silas Mason, and Danny Flamingo playing the Freebirds. It's Hayes Gordy and Roberts, respectively. They looked outstanding, I thought, but no lines for them, no speaking parts for them. It was all just in ring action. Out of I guess the supporting cast, the biggest parts were Kevin Anton as Harley Race. He had some in-ring scenes as well, a match against Kevin, and Anton also cut a promo as Race, and it came out really good. Uh, Aaron Dean Eisenberg played Ric Flair, and that's probably that's another part that had a little bit bigger part to it. After the first screening, there was some criticism from the quote unquote wrestling journalists saying that the Ric Flair parts were unintentionally funny. I really don't know where they're getting that. Any humor that was in those scenes was intentional. Uh, I guess what I came away with more than anything was Eisenberg cuts a promo as Ric Flair. It was a standard, Flair promo for the time, really. But it was supposed to be 1986, and he's dressed looking like it's about 1974. Uh, but as far as everything else, the in-ring scenes and everything after the match, he does have a few lines in it. I thought it was fine. I didn't. What humor was there was supposed to be there, so I don't know what they're talking about as far as unintentionally funny. But as far as the cast goes, I had thumbs up, two thumbs up for all of them. I thought they all did great. Now the movie itself, and I'm going to try to avoid spoilers. I'm not going to get too deep on anything. It starts off, kind of building the story of the bond between the brothers, which if as a world class fan and a Von Erichs fan, if you're going to get nitpicky over it, there is a lot to nitpick. But I think that's part of the problem with this, as far as us as fans, we already know all of this stuff. We're going to know all the little things. Not only was that a big part of our lives as it was happening, but we keep reliving it. We've got all these videos, and we keep watching the matches, and we're too close to it, maybe, I guess would be a good way to put it. So there's a lot of stuff that well, one of the comments they actually rebuilt the Sportatorium. I'm going to have to find out where this is. I'm assuming it's around Baton Rouge. I want to see it. One of the comments pointed out something in the movie that I guess it's like a green screen or a CGI thing. They make it seem like it's in Dallas. I got Dallas in the background, and somebody said, well, they didn't even have the Sportatorium facing the right way. It's like, come on, dude. They rebuilt the Sportatorium, and you're worried about which way it's facing for the movie. Not to cast stones or anything, but come on, But as the movie moves along, we get into the story. We all know, and we all know what happens. And it gets a little emotional toward the end, even though the story in the movie is told a little bit different. It still starts hitting you pretty hard once it really sinks in, when you see all of that play out in front of you in such a short period of time. It really I think it kind of really hits home a little harder. Everything that they went through, and then when you realize that's not even the whole story, because as we've talked about, Chris Von Erich is not a character in the movie, and I understand both sides of this. I understand why they did that, why Sean Durkin left Chris out of the movie, but I also understand people that have a big problem with it. I would have preferred that Chris was in the movie. But the fact of the matter is, it was already over 2 hours long, as it was, which is pretty long for modern standards as far as the length of a movie. By the time you wedge Chris's story in there, you're probably add another half hour, 40 minutes, and there is the fact that he's not the only one that's left out. A lot of people may not realize that both David and Mike were married, and David actually had a daughter at a very young age named Natasha that died in her infancy. So there's another tragedy in the family. They don't mention anything about David or Mike's wife or family. Even Carrie's is they kind of mention his wife. They're I think they're there for Christmas, kind of in the background, maybe. But they don't really mention any of the boys, other boys' families other than Kevin's, which, for Kevin, Zac Efron playing Kevin Von Erich, that's kind of a story along with everything else. He meets Pam and they marry and start having a family, and but they don't say anything about anybody else's, Mike or David's wives, or like I say, Carrie's is kind of mentioned. So there were other people that were left out of the movie as well, and that is something I kind of wish they had done. Is at the very least that maybe they could have put something right before the end credits, maybe dedicating the movie to them or something. It would have been nice if they had done something. As you may have guessed, movie reviews are not one of my fortes, not one of my strong points. Like I say, I don't want to give too much away, but I liked the movie. I don't know about star ratings or scale of 1 to 10 or any of that, but I just say I liked it, and I do recommend that people see it, even if you want to wait until you can watch it at home. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten what I've already said now, but if you do know a non-wrestling fan that might be interested in watching it, they might actually get more out of it, because they're not going to sit there and, well, that's not when David started wrestling. That's not when that happened. That's the. And there is somebody made a comment about this on one of the videos, and I'd have to agree. It doesn't do a very good job of making the time skips clear. The flow of the movie is a little off. Like I say again, not to give too much away, but the way it plays out in the movie, which I understand what he was trying to do, but it makes it seem like Kerry was still world champion when he had his motorcycle wreck, and there was actually a 2-year skip there, but they don't make it very clear that there's a time skip. It makes it seem like all of this happened a lot closer together than it actually did, and I guess that's it. After 14 months after the first video, which at the time I made it, I thought was just just messing around, goofing off, trying to find some unknown actors to fill some of the roles, we wrap up our Iron Claw journey here on the channel. And I had another person comment once and said, the producers of the movie should give you a cut of the profits for promoting the movie. And as far as I'm concerned, paid in full, because to be honest, I was on the verge of quitting YouTube, and had kind of wanted to do some wrestling stuff. I thought, well, there's all these wrestling channels out there. You got Cultaholic, and you've got all these other wrestling channels, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Jim Cornette's on YouTube. Who's going to want to watch any wrestling stuff that I can put out? And when the original Iron Claw video took off, and then I had the idea for World Class Bios, I found my interest again, and lo and behold, instead of doing everything the way I was supposed to do it, I started doing things the way I wanted to do it, and it's worked out pretty good. So let me say I appreciate everybody that has followed along with these videos, everyone that has subscribed, and all the feedback. Not so much the trolls, but you can't avoid them. They're going to come out of the woodworks no matter what. I appreciate everybody that has watched and liked and commented, and I'm going to continue doing some wrestling content, and uh, maybe we'll start a campaign to have a Bruiser Brody movie or a Gino Hernandez movie, because there's some story there too. Just like the first time, I'm having a little trouble wrapping things up. It almost seems surreal now that the movie's out. But again, thank you for watching. Go see the Iron Claw, or see the Iron Claw when it's available to stream. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Not necessarily in that order. And I will see you next time.